Few people have the courage to admit it, but most men don't suffer from a lack of effort. They suffer from an excess of it. The more they try to please, explain, prove their worth, the more invisible they become. And not because they are weak, but because they were taught to play a completely wrong emotional game. Machiavelli already warned, politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Attraction doesn't respond to good intentions. It responds to the silent reading of power, posture, and self-control. Perhaps you've experienced this before. At first, she seemed interested. Long conversations, easy laughs, constant attention. Then, without clear warning, something changes. The responses become cold, the enthusiasm fades, and you start doing exactly what destroys the remaining attraction, chasing after her, explaining yourself, insisting. Here's the counterintuitive truth that almost no one teaches. It's not the lack of feeling that drives a woman away, it's the loss of perceived value. And value isn't something you ask for, it's something you demonstrate. What you're going to learn here isn't cheap manipulation or internet trickery. It's psychology based on real human nature. These are principles that influential men have always known, but which have rarely been translated into the field of seduction. The end justifies the means. In this case, it means abandoning self-sabotaging behaviors and adopting a posture that naturally sparks interest, respect, and curiosity. Not because you force it, but because you change. These mental triggers work quickly because they operate where logic fails, on instinct. They manipulate perception, not promises. And when perception shifts, the whole game changes. You stop being the man trying to convince and become the man who is chosen. Not by chance, but through unconscious reading. If you're tired of doing everything right and still feeling like something always slips through the cracks, maybe the problem was never too much effort, but the wrong direction. And that's exactly what you're about to understand. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now, not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He begins by explaining something that almost no one likes to hear, but every man has experienced firsthand. The more you chase after something, the less value you convey. It's an uncomfortable, almost ironic paradox, but absolutely true to real human nature. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, has always shown that desire is not born from insistence, but from perception. When someone pursues too much, they send a silent signal of neediness, and neediness has never been synonymous with attraction. Machiavelli observed this centuries ago, even outside the realm of love. Whoever begs loses position, and in the game of seduction, position is everything. It's not about artificial coldness, but about understanding how virtù and fortuna manifest themselves in human relationships. Attraction responds to the reading of behavior, not to good intentions. Whoever insists too much without realizing it surrenders their own power. Here he makes a point of breaking a common myth, almost a modern dogma. It's not appearance, money, or status that defines who sparks genuine interest. Of course, these factors help, but they don't sustain attraction. What sustains it is mindset, inner posture, the way someone presents themselves to the world. Men who understand decisions based on real human nature are not driven by anxiety, but by choice. They don't confuse appearance of virtue with real value, nor do they believe that pleasing always generates connection. On the contrary, they understand that excessive kindness can become disguised submission. The end justifies the means not in a moralistic sense, but strategically. The goal is to preserve one's own value, and preserving value requires awareness, not blind effort. This is where many go wrong, thinking they need to do more, when in reality they need to do better. The mentor then guides the reader to a practical, almost everyday reflection. He asks the person to observe simple situations, messages answered immediately, agendas always open, plans cancelled without a second thought. All this seems polite, but it communicates something dangerous. It communicates that the other person occupies the center of your life. Machiavelli warned that it is better to be feared than loved, provided one knows how to avoid being hated. And this also applies to the emotional realm. It's not about causing fear, but about inspiring respect. Respect is born when someone perceives that you have your own loyal armies, that is, a structured life, interests, goals, and direction. Those who do not have their own army depend on the army of others, and dependence rarely generates desire. It generates control. With a touch of humor, he comments that many men act like desperate salesmen offering a product no one asked for. They talk too much, explain too much, justify themselves too much, and the more they talk, the less mystery there is. Constant adaptability teaches that observation is more powerful than exposure. A centered man doesn't need to sell himself, because his presence already communicates something. He understands the calculated use of force, including the force of silence. He doesn't react to everything, doesn't constantly explain himself, doesn't rush to fill every empty space. This self-control creates positive tension, curiosity, and respect. And curiosity is a silent fuel of attraction. Those who can't stand silence end up revealing insecurity without saying a single word. Therefore, even before getting into the practical rules, he makes it clear: the game isn't about manipulating women, but about rebuilding one's own position in the world. When a man aligns himself with his purpose, adjusts his posture, and understands how human dynamics work, everything around him changes. Attraction ceases to be something forced and becomes a consequence. Virtù and fortuna begin to work together because there is an internal foundation. From here on, each rule will not be a trick, but a course correction. And the first of these, perhaps the most uncomfortable of all, begins exactly where most people go wrong, in the obsession with chasing after women, believing that excessive effort is proof of worth, when, in fact, it's usually the opposite. He begins by making it clear that this paradox is not an opinion, but a behavioral pattern repeated ad nauseum in human relationships. The more someone chases after something, the more they communicate that they don't have much to lose. And deep down, the human mind interprets this as low perceived value. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that desire is born from relative scarcity, not from desperate abundance. Machiavelli understood this in contexts of power, alliances, and wars, but the principle is the same in the emotional realm. When you chase too much, you transfer control of the interaction to the other side, and excessive control kills the mystery. Attraction doesn't grow in terrain where everything has already been given. It grows where there is still something to be conquered. Here he dismantles the romantic belief that persistence proves genuine interest. Healthy interest is clear, firm, and calm. Persistence is anxious, noisy, and unstable. Men who don't understand decisions based on real human nature confuse persistence with value, and they end up becoming too predictable. Excessive predictability creates comfort, but it doesn't create desire. The end justifies the means. In this context, means understanding that the goal is not to please but to awaken. and awakening requires controlled emotional tension. When everything is obvious, when the answer always comes quickly, when the presence is constant, the female brain doesn't need to invest energy, and that which doesn't require investment is rarely valued. The mentor then gives a simple, almost painful example. Imagine two men interested in the same woman. One always responds immediately, cancels appointments, and adapts his entire schedule. The other responds when he can, sticks to his plans, and doesn't over-explain. Neither is rude, but only one demonstrates superiority. Better to be feared than loved here doesn't mean being cold, but being emotionally respected. The second man doesn't fear losing because he has his own loyal armies, routine, goals, purpose. The first lives according to her reaction. And this, sooner or later, generates disinterest, not out of malice, but due to an unconscious misinterpretation of value. He explains that excessive enthusiasm is interpreted as emotional urgency. And urgency communicates imbalance. Constant adaptability teaches that knowing when to advance is as important as knowing when to retreat. An emotionally centered man doesn't react to every stimulus as if it were the last. He observes, calibrates, and chooses. This is the true calculated use of force in the field of seduction. It's not physical force nor verbal imposition. It's self-control. It's knowing that not every message needs an immediate response. Not every invitation needs to be accepted. Not every absence needs to be filled with lengthy explanations. Well-used silence speaks much louder than anxious speeches. Based on this understanding, he prepares the ground for something practical. Stopping the chase isn't about playing games. It's about reorganizing priorities. It's about putting someone at the center of your life before they've even proven they deserve that place. The appearance of virtue isn't real value. Real value is genuine scarcity, not fabricated scarcity. When you reduce the pursuit, you create space for the other person to act. And when the other person acts, they invest. And when they invest, they feel more attraction. That's the paradox. And it's precisely here that the next step comes into play, because stopping the chase alone isn't enough if you continue to be an open book, predictable, and overly emotionally exposed. He begins this rule with a direct, almost uncomfortable statement. Pursuing someone demonstrates low perceived value even when the intention is good. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that behavior speaks louder than feeling. When a man is constantly chasing after someone, he communicates neediness, haste, and fear of losing. And fear rarely arouses attraction. Machiavelli observed that those who anticipate too much reveal strategic weakness. In the emotional field, it's no different. The end justifies the means. Here means preserving one's own position before trying to conquer that of another. It's not indifference, it's balance. Those who pursue too much put themselves below others without realizing it. And once below others, everything becomes an effort. He explains that excessive enthusiasm conveys desperation, even when the man thinks he's just being kind. Long messages, immediate responses, total availability. All of this seems virtuous, but often it's just the appearance of virtue. The human mind reads these signals as a lack of options, and decisions based on real human nature show that people value what they need to earn, not what is already given. Better to be feared than loved, in this context, means being respected emotionally. Respect is born when the other person realizes that you don't depend on that interaction to feel whole. Dependence creates weight. Lightness creates attraction. The mentor then moves on to how to apply it, providing practical and simple examples. Matching her level of investment is the first step. If she takes hours to respond, you don't need to respond in seconds. If she invests little, you don't compensate by investing a lot. This isn't a game, it's healthy mirroring. Machiavelli would call this the calculated use of force, adjusting your energy to the scenario, not pouring it out indiscriminately. Always being immediately available communicates that your schedule is empty, and those who don't have their own schedule don't have their own loyal armies. A full life, not in a chaotic sense, but in a sense of purpose, is extremely attractive. He emphasizes that focusing on your own life and goals changes everything. Going to the gym regularly, advancing in your career, studying something that expands your mind. Books like The Power of Habit, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, or even Machiavelli's The Prince, help create this internal structure. When you have real commitments, you don't need to feign unavailability. It happens naturally. Constant adaptability isn't about changing who you are, but adjusting your posture according to the moment. Leaving space for it to invest effort is essential. If you do everything, it does nothing, and if it does nothing, it doesn't get involved. The result of this rule, when applied maturely, is almost always the same. She starts to get closer, ask questions, suggest dates, seek validation. Not through manipulation, but because the dynamic has changed. You've stopped being someone who begs for attention and have become someone who offers selective presence. Virtù and fortuna align when there is self-control. But this rule alone still has a risk. If you continue to reveal everything, talk too much, and expose yourself too early, the effect is lost. And that's exactly why the next rule comes into play, dealing with something that many underestimate, but which sustains attraction over time: mystery. He begins this rule with a subtle but powerful warning. Excessive transparency too early doesn't create connection, it creates saturation. Politics, guided by reality, not ideals, shows that the human brain engages more with what it doesn't yet fully understand. When a man reveals everything about himself in the first few encounters, he eliminates curiosity before it even arises. Machiavelli understood that information is power, and whoever gives away all their power at once is left without cards to play later. The end justifies the means here. It's not about hiding who you are, but knowing when to reveal yourself. Mystery isn't a lie, it's rhythm, and rhythm is essential to keep interest alive. He explains that a classic mistake is turning the first date into an impromptu therapy session, talking about traumas, frustrations, past disappointments, detailed life plans. All of this may seem like intimacy, but it's often just disguised anxiety. The appearance of virtue comes into play again. Seeming deep is not the same as being deep. Decisions based on real human nature show that true intimacy is built over time and with balanced exchange. When only one side exposes themselves too much, the other observes, absorbs, and distances themselves, not out of coldness, but out of instinct. Too much emotional exposure too early is detrimental. In the How to Apply section, he suggests something simple and elegant. Share your world gradually. Talk about hobbies, interests, and experiences, but without giving away the complete map. If you like to travel, mention one memorable trip, not all of them. If you have professional ambitions, mention the path, not every detail of the plan. Better to be feared than loved, here, translates to being emotionally respected, not predictable. A little positive unpredictability keeps attention active. It's not about disappearing without explanation. It's about not becoming an open book on the first page. He also warns against the impulsive use of social media. Showing every detail of one's routine, every thought, every emotion of the day destroys the mystery outside of direct contact. The calculated use of force includes knowing when to remain silent digitally. Constant adaptability means understanding that not everything needs to be shared. A man who experiences something interesting doesn't feel the need to prove it all the time. he lives. His own loyal armies include a life outside of external validation. And this, curiously, generates even more interest, because it conveys emotional autonomy. The result of this posture is predictable. She begins to fill in the gaps mentally. And when someone mentally completes what hasn't been said, it creates internal involvement. Virtù and fortuna work together when you allow the other person to participate in building the image they form of you. But there's a crucial detail. Mystery without stability becomes insecurity. If a man doesn't control his own emotions, silence becomes negative tension. Therefore, the next rule is fundamental, not to control the other person, but to control yourself, where true attraction begins. He opens this rule with a simple and rarely taught truth. Emotional volatility kills attraction faster than any external mistake. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that people observe how you react much more than what you say. A man who oscillates between euphoria and frustration transmits instability, and instability generates insecurity, not desire. Machiavelli already warned that the ruler incapable of controlling himself ends up being controlled. In the emotional field, the logic is the same. The end justifies the means here means preserving internal balance before seeking external connection. He who does not govern himself can hardly govern any situation. He explains that men who don't control their own emotions appear fragile, even when they are physically strong or successful. Excessive jealousy, constant demands, impulsive reactions to small signs of rejection, all of this reveals a fear of loss. And decisions based on real human nature show that fear is contagious. When you demonstrate insecurity, the other person instinctively begins to distance themselves. Better to be feared than loved, in this context, means being seen as someone emotionally solid, someone who doesn't crumble in the face of unforeseen events. The appearance of emotional virtue sustains nothing. What sustains is genuine self-control. In practical terms, it guides simple yet powerful actions. Maintaining calm in the face of cancellations, delayed responses, or changes of plans is essential. Not overreacting doesn't mean swallowing everything, but choosing the right moment to speak, taking a deep breath before replying to a message, waiting a few minutes to organize your thoughts, avoiding impulsive responses. This is the calculated use of emotional strength. Practices such as guided meditation, regular physical exercise, and reading works like The Power of Now or meditations help develop this inner discipline. Having your own loyal armies are also habits that strengthen the mind. He reinforces the importance of avoiding outbursts of jealousy or anger. Nothing destroys respect faster than disproportionate emotional attacks. Constant adaptability means understanding that not every stimulus requires an immediate reaction. Sometimes the best response is none. Confessing eternal love too soon or making dramatic displays may seem romantic, but it usually scares people away. The human mind values progression, not sudden intensity. Virtù and fortuna walk hand in hand when a person knows how to balance emotion and reason without becoming cold, but also without becoming a prisoner of their feelings. When this rule is applied, the result is clear. You become a firm, predictable presence in the best sense, someone who conveys security. She begins to see you as a reliable rock, someone she can trust emotionally. But this internal control needs to be accompanied by something external, clear boundaries, because controlling emotions without establishing boundaries transforms a man into someone calm but permissive, and permissiveness corrodes respect. It is precisely at this point that the next rule comes in, showing that lasting attraction is born when emotion and boundaries walk hand in hand. He begins this rule with a simple, almost mathematical equation. Without limits, there is no respect. Without respect, there is no attraction. Politics, guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that people treat you the way you allow them to. When a man accepts any behavior, recurring delays, constant cancellations, disinterested responses, he communicates that his time is worth little. Machiavelli already warned that excessive tolerance is interpreted as strategic weakness. The end justifies the means here, not punishing the other, but protecting one's own dignity. Limits don't drive away those who are truly interested. They drive away those who only take advantage. He explains that many women lose attraction to men who accept everything silently, not because they desire conflict, but because permissive silence communicates insecurity. Decisions based on real human nature show that respect is born from clarity. A man who doesn't know what he accepts also doesn't know what he offers. Better to be feared than loved, in this context, means being respected emotionally, not feared negatively. An appearance of virtue, always being understanding, always flexible, may seem like maturity, but when exaggerated it becomes disguised submission. And submission rarely sustains desire. In the How to Apply section, he provides practical and direct guidance. The first step is to decide internally what is acceptable to you. Occasional delays happen. Frequent delays become the norm. One-off cancellations are normal. Recurring cancellations are disrespectful. When something bothers you, speak calmly, without accusing or dramatizing. Something like, "I prefer to schedule when there is more certainty," already establishes a clear boundary. This is the calculated use of force, firmness without aggression. Your own loyal armies include self-esteem and clarity of values, not just a busy routine. He emphasizes that being prepared to leave is an essential part of setting limits. A limit without consequences isn't a limit, it's a request. Constant adaptability means knowing when to insist and when to back down. If the pattern of disrespect continues, a centered man doesn't argue indefinitely. He adjusts his presence. He doesn't accept disrespect, nor does he try to convince anyone to respect him. Machiavelli taught that avoiding being hated is as important as being firm. Therefore, limits should be set calmly, not resentfully. The result of this attitude is almost inevitable. She begins to respect you more and, in many cases, to fear losing you. Not toxic fear, but an awareness of your worth. Virtue and fortune align when a man demonstrates that he prefers to be alone rather than be mistreated. However, boundaries only truly work when there is something greater underpinning them all. If a man has no purpose, he gives in. If he has no direction, he negotiates the non-negotiable. And that is precisely why the next rule closes the cycle, placing at the center that which should never have left, purpose itself. He begins this rule with a truth that separates centered men from reactive men. Never abandoning one's own path for someone else is a principle, not a momentary strategy. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that those who lose their way to please others also lose respect. Machiavelli observed that leaders without clear direction become hostages to external pressures. In the emotional realm, this translates directly. When a man's life revolves around gaining female approval, he ceases to be the protagonist. The end justifies the means here, meaning protecting the center of one's own life before allowing anyone else to participate in it. He explains that women are attracted to men who are going somewhere, even if that place is still under construction. It's not about a ready-made status, but about a clear direction. Decisions based on real human nature show that purpose generates gravity. A man with goals, hobbies, and vision doesn't need to beg for attention because his life is already full of meaning. Better to be feared than loved in this context is to be respected for not bending emotionally. The appearance of virtue would be pretending not to care. True sovereignty is simply not depending. In terms of how to apply it, it's extremely practical. Keeping important commitments even when a last-minute invitation arises is a clear sign of internal prioritization. Continuing to go to the gym, study, work on personal projects, whether it's advancing your career, learning a new skill, or improving your health, creates a solid foundation. Reading books like Think and Grow Rich, Anti-Fragile, or The Prince helps strengthen this long-term mindset. Your own loyal armies are built with routine, discipline, and consistency, not with emotional improvisation. He also warns about the trap of emotional codependency. Canceling everything to always be available seems romantic at first, but quickly becomes a loss of value. Constant adaptability doesn't mean giving up everything. It means integrating someone into your life, not replacing your life with someone else's. The calculated use of emotional power appears when you invite but don't beg. You offer but don't sacrifice the essential. Virtù and fortuna meet when the choice to be with someone comes from abundance, not scarcity. The result of this attitude is powerful and silent. You become more attractive precisely because you don't need to prove anything. She realizes she's with you by mutual choice, not out of desperation. This type of man conveys security, direction, and freedom simultaneously. But all of this only works when there's a greater understanding behind these rules, an integrated view of self-worth, attraction, and human behavior. And that's exactly what begins to reveal itself when you understand that none of these rules are manipulation, but a direct reflection of who you choose to become. He begins by tying everything together in a clear and almost inevitable way. All these rules point to a single center, the value that man places on himself. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that the world doesn't react to what you say you're worth, but to what you demonstrate your worth. When someone respects themselves, organizes their life, and acts coherently, the environment responds. Machiavelli always made it clear that power is not asked for, it is recognized. And in human relations, this recognition arises from consistent behavior, not from beautiful speeches. The end justifies the means here is not about manipulating other people's emotions, but about aligning internal and external actions. He emphasizes that valuing oneself is not arrogance nor emotional coldness. It is maturity. Decisions based on real human nature show that people are naturally attracted to those who convey stability, direction, and self-control. Better to be feared than loved, when well understood, is simply to be respected before being desired. The appearance of virtue, trying to seem nice, too available, too understanding, does not sustain attraction. What sustains it is consistency. When discourse matches posture, virtù and fortuna begin to work together almost invisibly. He reminds us that none of this works like a magic formula applied overnight. It's about adjustments in mindset and behavior that accumulate. Focusing on one's own life, maintaining boundaries, mastering emotions, preserving mystery, and not abandoning one's purpose are daily practices. Your own loyal armies aren't built in a weekend. They are the result of continuous discipline. Reading, physical training, consistent work, caring for the mind, all of this strengthens a person from within. And when the inner foundation is solid, the outer world organizes itself without excessive effort. In an almost confidential tone, he makes it clear that attraction should never be forced. Forcing creates resistance. True attraction arises when someone becomes interesting for who they are, not for what they try to prove. The calculated use of force appears precisely in the choice not to act impulsively. Constant adaptability is understanding that each situation demands a different rhythm, but always with the same internal axis. Those who live reacting lose control. Those who act from a firm center transmit security, and security is magnetic. He concludes this cycle leaving a clear feeling. The man who applies these principles not only changes his love life, but also his relationship with himself. He stops seeking external validation and begins to operate from his own sovereignty. Virtù and fortuna align when there is inner clarity, and from that point on, attraction ceases to be an obsession and becomes a consequence. The next step, naturally, is not to learn more rules, but to understand how to transform this knowledge into daily practice, because knowing without applying is merely a comfortable illusion. Now he asks you a question that is unsettling but necessary. What exactly will change in your life after consuming all this? Because knowledge without application doesn't transform, it only entertains. Politics, guided by reality, not by ideals, makes this very clear. It's no use agreeing with everything and continuing to act the same way. Attraction doesn't respond to what you understand. It responds to what you consistently practice. Machiavelli was always direct about this. Those who don't act are swallowed up by the scenery. These mental triggers don't work because they're smart, but because they correct basic errors that silently destroy value. Stopping the chase, maintaining mystery, mastering emotions, setting boundaries, and prioritizing purpose aren't isolated actions. They're a life stance. The end justifies the means here means abandoning self-sabotaging behaviors, even if they seem comfortable. Growing hurts less than remaining invisible. So honest reflection is worthwhile. Where are you still betraying yourself in order to be accepted? In what situations do you react out of fear of losing instead of acting by choice? Decisions based on true human nature require courage because they go against the social conditioning of pleasing at all costs. Better to be feared than loved, when properly understood, is simply to be respected first, by yourself and by others. None of this requires you to become cold, distant, or artificial. It only requires you to stop begging for validation and start operating from your own sovereignty. Virtù and fortuna align when there is inner clarity. And when that happens, attraction ceases to be an obsession and becomes a natural consequence of who you have become. Now the choice is yours. You can apply a single principle today. Adjust your posture, your timing, your reactions, or you can close this video and continue repeating the same patterns, expecting different results. If this content made sense, comment below which of these rules resonated most with you. This helps the channel grow and shows that you're not just watching, but thinking. And if you want to continue learning the psychology of seduction, silent power, and Machiavellian-based strategy, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you don't learn to please, you learn to be respected.